This is a special news presentation from ABC 3340. April 27th, 2011. Alabama changed. Lives shattered. A devastating tornado outbreak destroyed homes, claimed more than 250 lives, and left parts of Alabama broken. Today, 1 year later, Alabama is moving forward. ABC 3340 and Chief Meteorologist James Spann share new insight and stories of hope in April 27th, 1 year later.
Good evening. I'm ABC 3340 Chief Meteorologist James Spann. April 27th, 2011. The day everything changed here in this neighborhood, Pratt City, in the western part of Birmingham and around the state. So many tornadoes, so many lives lost, so much damage. It was a day we will never forget. So this is a tornado emergency. This is a very serious situation. But again, that is something that you pray that you never, ever, ever see. This thing looks like it might be over 1/2 mile wide, maybe up to 3/4 of a mile wide. This will be a day that will go down in state history. And all you can do is pray for those people.
That I know that I cannot wake up from.
It's controlled chaos back here, basically.
It was awful. It was the most scared I've ever been in my life.
About the time I got through the bathroom door, well, the back of the house was coming off. And it was a wild ride after that.
Hearing people yelling for help and not being able to do anything because you're the person that needs help too.
We felt the pressurization, heard all the windows implode, and then the next thing we knew, everything was flying around and falling in on us.
Within a minute of us going in the door and getting in the room, it hit.
I'm in my living room watching TV, and I look out the window and hear crashing, and I see the tornado over the corner of the building, and I knew it was coming right at me, so I took cover, did what I could, and the Lord smiled on me.
A few moments ago, I had an opportunity in Air 1 to observe the damage from about 500 feet, and to say the least, it is massive. I would estimate on a 3 to 4 mile stretch of the city, at some parts more than a 1/2 mile wide, we have utter destruction. We have neighborhoods that have basically been removed from the map. We have businesses that will no longer be able to engage in commerce. And we've got thousands upon thousands of citizens who have lost all of their possessions.
We had to go to the VA and identify his body. They said he had broke his neck and flew him out the back window. They found him against a tree.
I knew I had a lot of debris on top of me, and I didn't know if I could get out, but I was sort of crumpled up almost in a squatting position, and I couldn't move my legs at first, but that was just because of the debris. And
in some areas, there's total devastation when it comes down to the neighborhoods that this storm has struck. Fortunately or unfortunately, we've only had one fatality. We do have some people who are unaccounted for, and that number may rise, but we're going to remain prayerful and work hard to make sure that everyone is accounted for.
We can smell the pine, and so we knew it was trees in the house. When we got out the house and went back upstairs, the roof was gone, the front of the house was gone.
There's hundreds of houses have been damaged varying degrees. Several of them have been completely blown away. Right now, we're trying to do some search and rescue. We have already done basically a primary search, and now we're going through the secondary search process.
There's a time to live and a time to die.
We would like to think that we could still rescue some people, but we have begun the recovery stage, and we've recovered the bodies so far in Alabama of 228 people.
I've got to say, I've never seen devastation like this. It is heartbreaking. We were just talking to some residents here who were lucky enough to escape alive but have lost everything. They mentioned that their neighbors had lost 2 of their grandchildren in the process. What you're seeing here is the consequence of just a few minutes of this extraordinarily powerful storm sweeping through this community.
There's a time for yes and a time for no. There's a time to be angry and a time to let it go. There's a time to run and a time to face it. There is love to see you through all of this. Hallelujah. Through all of this. He is with you in the conference room when the world is coming down on you and your wife and kids don't know you anymore. He is with you in the ICU when the doctors don't know what to do and it scares you to the core. He's with you. We may weep for a time, but joy will come in the morning. Yes, it will. Morning light. Help me. I need help.
You lose everything?
I lost everything. Feel alone in your worries. If you got it right or wrong.
When the tornado hit Tuscaloosa, lives, homes, and power were lost. One place that narrowly missed a destructive blow stood as a beacon of light for so many victims that night.
And then all of a sudden, you hear them call out DCH and Bryant-Denny Stadium, and it dawns on you that storm is headed right for us.
A look inside DCH Regional Medical Center on April 27th.
It broke my heart to know that, like I said before, like his family wasn't there. Like complete strangers as nurses were there when he took his last breath.
Many of the tornadoes that came through Alabama that horrible day and night were upper-end, strong, violent tornadoes, EF4s and EF5s. The countryside is still so scarred today, and it will stay that way for a long time. But the warnings were good. People had time to prepare and go to a safe place. But even during those times of seeking shelter, the storm force was so great. But there were beacons of hope and life that night, like the hospitals across the state of Alabama, including DCH Regional Medical Center in Tuscaloosa.
We're a regional trauma center serving most all of West Alabama and encompass a number of counties in our coverage area.
We serve 13 counties, all the way down to the Dallas-Wilcox area, all the way up through basically towards Winfield. So Fayette, Pickens, Greene and Hale County, and Sumter County, all those counties around West Alabama bordering Mississippi we serve.
We came in early because a tornado had hit the coaling area, and we had patients from that tornado.
We had a family here that their home was completely destroyed. Luckily, they were okay. We took care of them, and we probably had 10 to 15 maybe from that storm.
We set up our incident command center that morning, and what that really involves is some key players at the hospital just being a little extra aware about what's going on.
The people in charge charge were monitoring the weather. And our nurse manager, Terry Snyder, she was monitoring the weather.
We're watching live on TV and we see the storm. And we're, just like any other day, we're watching this tornado and thinking, you know, wow, they've caught another one on the tower cam system.
It was about a little after 5. Terry Snyder stuck her head in the door and said, y'all, this is a tornado. It's a bad one. And it's headed right toward us.
You hear them call out DCH and Bryant-Denny Stadium, and it dawns on you that storm is headed right for us.
Several young people in the crowd started crying. Several people started praying.
And it was just this loud noise, and your ears started popping. And so I looked out the window, and this huge black cloud of debris just passed by the window.
The hallway turned into basically a wind tunnel from where it pulled the doors open. A couple of pictures fell off the wall.
It was pitch black. You could see it. You could see the funnel, I guess you would say, but it was just, you could see it swirling. It was loud. You could feel it in your ears, and you could see the debris that was in it.
I immediately knew that when the tornado touched down, that we were going to have our hands full.
The fire alarms are going off, so it's a little chaotic in the hallways now. We had all the patients and family members in the center hallways of the hospital.
And we had no idea of what we were about to face.
EMS started telling us it's bad everywhere. It looks like a war zone. It's just outside the back door.
Probably maybe 15 or 20 minutes when the patients started coming in.
And the first call that we get is 3 children in full cardiac arrest.
You know, we all started kind of getting in gear. Okay, who can we move? What areas are we going to put patients in? And really started trying to get a feel for what was going to happen.
When the fire rescue unit pulled up and we opened the back doors, and there are 3 infants laying there, and you've got a paramedic in the back that is doing everything he can for those 3 kids.
All on the same stretcher, all of whom were pronounced dead as soon as they got here.
You know, it started out 1 patient, 2 patients, 20 patients, 30, 40 at a time. There were so many coming.
We had people just coming in every entrance of the hospital that they could to seek help.
Any door that you could come into the hospital, people were coming in the hospital. There were dogs in the hospital. There were, you know, just people trying to find some solace.
Phone lines were down. Cell service was very sparse.
My best use of my services and my training was going to be to direct disaster triage. Somebody has to say, okay, this patient's critical and we can do something about them. This patient's critical and we really can't do much for them, and we need to divert resources elsewhere. Or this patient is walking, they need to go over here.
They were being brought in by complete strangers, people that just found them on the side of the road. They were being brought in on doors, on headboards of bed. I mean, I took many babies just from strangers' arms, not even knowing whose babies these were, or where their family was, where their parents were.
I remember seeing this young gentleman. They brought in on a backboard. I mean, on a headboard of a bed. They got him out of the truck, out of the back of a truck, and brought him in. The image of him was, I guess I would say, was one of the first horrible images of that day.
As basically the ambulances and private autos and police cars that were all bringing injured patients would pull up into our ambulance entrance, we would have physicians and nurses in the ambulance entrance unloading those patients either onto stretchers, into wheelchairs, or if they were able to walk, they would go to different parts of the ER and putting them in the correct places, starting patient care immediately.
We saw just a multitude, pretty much anything you could think of, severed limbs, amputations, impaled objects, head injuries, closed chest injuries, lacerations, that just horrible lacerations, things that you just wouldn't think you would ever see.
A doctor and 2 to 3 nurses would be in a room. We would stabilize that patient. One of us would stay with them, then that group would go to the next room.
You've got patients that are wounded themselves, but they're wanting to help the one laying beside them.
Somebody brought us some bottles of water, those of us who were out there, and I looked down and he's wearing a patient ID band. He was a patient.
So the heart of these people that have been through this tragedy was just phenomenal.
I mean, there are just people everywhere where you really can't turn around, you can't move, can't do anything. But when you took a minute to look, every person had a nurse or a physician or somebody at their bedside doing something for them.
The hardest part was we've seen this type of trauma before, but not in this magnitude.
I was able to keep the composure because when I was dealing with somebody, I knew that I had been placed there for a purpose, that it wasn't by chance, that it was my responsibility at that point to take care of that person.
You can't get emotional, because if you let yourself become emotional in the moment, then you're not doing your patient any good.
We do fall apart emotionally, but it's after the fact.
I probably got some of the most intense hugs that I will ever receive in my life, or hand grasps that didn't want to let go. And I was just thinking we were probably some of the last faces some of these people saw before they died.
The image that gets me when I close my eyes are those 3 children.
It's hard enough to deal with one child that comes in and is dead, much less have 3 on a backboard the first thing you see.
It was just a horrific day that I hope that we never have to experience again.
That I was lucky enough to work with some really, really great people who took really, really great care of a lot of sick people.
Well, we were all put here that day for a purpose, and I believe that day that we were all blessed to be here, that we weren't trying to scramble somewhere to protect ourselves or our family, but that day defined this hospital. I think it defined the employees that worked not only in the emergency room but all over DCH. But I think more than that day defined Tuscaloosa.
A perspective seldom heard.
I remember getting off the air, and I looked at Jason, and he looked at me, and it's like we didn't even know what to say. It was like somebody had rammed their fist in our gut without us being ready.
Members of the ABC 3340 weather team speak from the heart on how April 27th impacted them live on the air.
You don't know if everybody's okay or not. And that was the first time that it got real that day.
A year later, many homes are still separated from their foundation. You can find piles of rubble in so many places across the state. Over the past year, so many people have stopped me to ask me, what were you feeling? What was it like being in the midst of that horrible day? For a long time, I opted not to talk about it. The death toll was so overwhelming, we didn't quite know what to say. But the time has come to talk about it. And the truth is, for me personally and all of the members of our weather team, we have a very intimate and emotional attachment to April 27, 2011.
We never in our wildest dreams imagined that we would be able to watch the most heartbreaking day in the state unfold on that Skycam network.
The ultimate goal is to keep people safe and prevent loss of life. That's the core of who I am and what we've done here all 15, 16 years.
And I knew what my plan was for the day. As far as the way it actually turned out, not what I expected.
Knowing the kind of environment that we were in, I came on in several hours early, had my breakfast, and I had a director on standby at 3 a.m. and called him about 10 after 3, and I said, we're going to go on in about 10 minutes. I believe the Weather Service is going to issue a tornado warning. Good morning. I'm Jason Simpson, live in the ABC 3340 Storm Alert Center. The National Weather Service has issued a tornado warning for Pickens County and Lamar County until 4:15 this morning. Because the first thought was we're just going to have your standard squall line with some embedded tornadoes, and they'll be relatively small, relatively short-lived. These warnings will be up maybe till about 6 o'clock this morning, and then we'll start to ease out of it into a little more stable situation until the afternoon.
By the time I got down here, Jason was already on the air.
What we ended up with was warning after warning after warning.
For goodness, 4 hours. It didn't stop.
The most surprising thing about it was the violence with which those tornadoes hit, especially in West Alabama early on.
We do have tornado warnings in effect for Cullman County, for Walker County, for parts of Jefferson and Shelby counties.
About 6:30 that morning, I got a phone call from one of my cousins in Holly Pond who knew I was on the air, knew I couldn't take a phone call, and I thought, why in the world are you calling me? You know that I can't take this call. And then it hit me that this giant rotating comma head feature on that line of storms had just passed over Holly Pond, and that he must have something to say. So I called him back, and he told me that the house that he was in was okay, but the house he was in was okay, but the farm at my aunt's house had been destroyed. The barn was on the ground, and all the trees were down.
I knew Jason was struggling with the fact that he had a lot of folks in the path of that morning storm. And Jason got a little emotional on the air, and I don't blame him. If he didn't, I'd worry about him. We're humans.
It was hours before I knew that my family was okay. And that's what makes it hard to talk about. It's not that the damage was so bad in Holly Pond. It's that, you know, here I am trying to hold it together. New tornado on TV with James and with hundreds of thousands of people wanting to know where these storms are going next. And in the back of my mind, the wheels are turning. And you just don't know.
I remember getting off the air, and I looked at Jason, and he looked at me, and it's like, we didn't even know what to say. It was like somebody had rammed their fist in our gut without us being ready. Soon after that, we learned that 5 people had died, and 250,000 people had no power. And that is an issue for this part of Alabama. It was greater than the inland effects of Hurricanes Ivan and Katrina.
I was sent to meet up with a photographer in Pell City to see what had already happened over there and get that story.
After the midday show, they called me to the newsroom, and we had an impromptu meeting at the assignment desk. And I just remember looking at Gary, our news director, and saying, Gary, have I ever told you that I expected a violent tornado outbreak with mass casualties before? And he says, no. I said, well, today's that day. Today's the day.
This is a tornado emergency for the city of Hamilton. Clearly, everybody in Hackleburg and Bear Creek be in a safe place now. We have one possible tornado approaching downtown Haleyville. Tornado emergency for the cities of Tuscaloosa and Northport. And this is a tornado emergency for the city of Birmingham. And a violent tornado is very close to Brent. This thing more than likely is on 231, about 6 miles south of downtown Asheville. We had multiple long track, violent tornadoes that could kill people. My greatest struggle was how to handle that. It's like you don't even want to get off of one for more than 30 seconds, but we had to.
There's a point in life where you know that everybody is your brother, everybody's your sister, and this was that day.
I'm not so sure that it was really sinking in for a lot of people exactly how strong those storms were that day.
That is a large wedge tornado that is coming through downtown Cullman, and again, do not worry about the change in the structure. This thing will probably stay down for a long period of time. So again, we are calling a tornado emergency for the city of Cullman and points north and east. We're looking to the southwest from high atop the Tuscaloosa County Courthouse, and again, we're going to stay with this as long as we keep power. If you watched us earlier this afternoon, we had a tornado just like that came through Cullman. I would suggest this might even be larger than the Cullman tornado.
I think it's much larger than that one.
This thing looks like it might be over 1/2 mile wide, maybe up to 3/4 of a mile wide. There's a large wedge tornado in the western suburbs of Birmingham, and again, this will be coming right up into the downtown area. I think it is very clear to me and to Jason that the greatest danger will be along and north of Red Mountain. So for those of you downtown Birmingham and points north, that's the extreme danger.
It was just unimaginable the pain that I was able to feel, and I know James felt the same way. We just felt pain for the people who were being affected by this, because we were seeing it live, and the only thing we could do was warn people.
And we have learned that if you can show people a live video stream of a tornado, they'll do something, where a lot of times you show them radar, they don't do anything.
It's very difficult to see and experience what we went through that day, and just to know what so many people have gone through and continue to go through.
These emotions started to set in as the death toll kept going up and up. Every day that the death toll kept going up, had a lot of emotions going through my mind, all of them. Anger. I was angry at me. I was angry at God. I was angry at the system, because we failed the people of the state because the death toll was that high.
I panicked a few times that day on the 27th, and even broke down a few times in the van.
But then again, you'd hear a story about somebody that heard the warning and they did the right thing, and they thought, you know, you got 36 people here that would be dead if we didn't do the right thing. So then you felt like, okay, you know, we did some good.
It really hurts to think back and look at that and wonder what we could have done better. But with the limitations of our equipment, the limitations of radar as it is now, we can see tornadoes with radar. We see the thunderstorm that produces them, so we can't tell what's happening down in that lowest part of the atmosphere. It just makes you wonder, what can we do better? And there are going to be a lot of good things that come out of this, but there are going to be a lot of memories that haunt me for a long time.
From the perspective of a meteorologist to the perspective of a first responder, what happens when the people you call for help need help of their own?
We came out of the house, came out of the closet into the living room area, and everything that was in the back of the house was piled against the front wall of the house, and the front wall of the house was gone, so had to do a little bit of digging to get out of the house.
A hero story when we come back.
We couldn't get firefighters to help each other because we were all stranded in our own little areas. The roads were just totally blocked. So it was not much you could do as far as for supporting the other guys.
When there's tragedy like this, the first responders, policemen, firemen, paramedics are so important. But what happens when the people you call on need help of their own? April 27th, they made sacrifices. Sacrifices seldom heard. Carl Brownfield of the Shoal Creek Valley Volunteer Fire Department is one of those heroes from April 27th, 2011.
We were listening to James Spann on the TV at my house, and we had heard him saying that, you know, there was a tornado coming towards Asheville.
It's coming up in the direction of Asheville, clearly Odenville, St. Clair Springs, Asheville, Whitney Junction, Steele.
We had prepared our storm shelter. We had notified people close by us that we knew were home, that there was a severe storm coming. Some of that was through phone calls, some of it was through text messages. And we heard the sirens go off, and probably 5 minutes after the sirens went off, the tornado was on top of us. We heard the hail coming, we saw it, and then shortly, probably within 30 seconds after that, we saw the edge of the tornado popping up over the top of the trees, and we ran for cover. We got in the storm shelter, and it was on top of us within a matter of seconds of the time I closed that door. We came out of the house, we came out of the closet into the living room area, and everything that was in the back of the house was piled against the front wall of the house, and the front wall of the house was gone, so had to do a little bit of digging to get out of the house. And I got out of the house and onto the front porch, and I looked down the road, and houses that I've never been able to see from my house I could see were collapsed. The fire truck that we had at the house was buried in trees. My personal pickup truck, I was able to get out quicker than the fire truck, so I got out my truck, left Mike Blanton, one of our firefighters, there to start cutting the fire truck out, and I went down the road, started looking for survivors. I got as far as I could go in the truck, and the road was blocked with trees, and we started to try to climb over the trees, and I found one of my neighbors coming down his driveway, and I went over to assist him. And he told me that his kids were in his backyard and they were hurt really bad. So we went back through and dug through them and found those, and then did what I could with them with what little equipment we had. And that's very difficult. It's very, very challenging. We couldn't get firefighters to help each other because we were all stranded in our own little areas. The roads were just totally blocked. So it was not much you could do as far as for supporting the other guys, and they'd be calling me on their phone telling me what kind of injuries they had, and I'd be telling them what, to try this or try that with what they had laying around. We had some entrapments that we ended up, one of the guys was able to find a jack in a truck and use a jack out of a pickup truck to lift up a piece of a house to get a young child out.
The Lee family lost everything that they own. In fact, right now I'm standing in what used to be the family kitchen. But more importantly, they also lost Tom Lee, a husband and father of 13 children. Today I talked with his oldest son, Jordan, about his dad's bravery just moments before he died.
It got louder and louder, and then it just hit, and everything went dark, and everybody was yelling.
For Jordan Lee, a tornado does not sound like a train or a bomb going off. It sounds like panic, confusion, and heartbreak.
The second floor came down, and some of these walls came in on us.
Lee was with his 12 brothers and sisters, his mother Sherry and his father Tom.
We were all in this room, and he was praying, and the wall hit him first, and he kind of threw me down, and he ended up on top of me there.
He says the first thing he thought, make sure everyone was okay. His two older sisters, Tiffany and Emily, were pinned under a piano. His brother Jacob was also stuck and thought he might not make it.
He had one arm hanging out, and if he could find our hand, he would grab it and tell us he loved us. And his head was on the piano, and part of the second floor was on the other side, and he was that way for at least 3 hours.
Injured but still alive, hurt but hopeful. Then Lee says he turned his attention to his father, who was on top of him.
He was trying to pray for us. It was kind of hard to make out what he was saying.
Moments later, he was gone.
And once I realized everyone else was okay, and I looked back at him and realized that was it, I can't really describe what I felt.
The Lees would stay buried under rubble for nearly 3 hours before being rescued, passing the time by singing Amazing Grace. Lee remembers his father as a man who lived for the Lord and died protecting what he loved most, his family.
I got to a point where the people I was working with, I did everything I could for them, and I left them in the hands of the gentleman there. And I said, the only thing I can do right now to help us and get help in here quicker is to pick up my saws and start going that way. I know there's a man out there trying to get into us. I'm going to try to meet him. If you have somebody with a broken limb, you're finding a piece of wood or something like that and some rags to try to splint it together, or rags to try to put on if somebody's bleeding, stuff like that. It was very primitive because we didn't have anything to work with. The storm hit a little after 6, around 20 after 6, I believe, and the last injury I know that we got out was in a helicopter about 5:30, 5:45 in the morning. We sent 67 people to the hospital that we knew of, and we had 11 pass that night, and we lost 2 more in the following days. And then 2 more a couple of days after that. I don't think I slept the first 72 hours after the call. After the tornado, I was mainly focused about the people in the valley. And she kept saying, we're involved in this too. I said, I know, but I know I'll be okay at some point. I need to make sure that they're okay. That's what I do. That's how we live. That's taking care of the neighbors, making sure that those who can't take care of themselves are taken care of. And physically, I know I was okay. Yeah, my house was destroyed now. That can all be replaced. It's the people that we lost that can't be replaced.
Adults dealing with the aftermath of a storm is one thing. How about a child?
My dad ran downstairs and told us to get in the corner. We were all huddled over one another, trembling.
Stories of life, hope, and even laughter after. You are watching an ABC 3340 special. April 27th, 1 year later.
Even in the worst of times, there is hope. Even in loss, there is a ray of sunshine. We can learn lessons through the voices of children. Listen to what they have to say.
The April 27th tornado deeply affected my life. My story begins like this.
When you came on TV, I was happy. I thought this was going to be like any other tornado we've had in Coleman. A little damage, a couple of broken tree limbs, and maybe some uprooted trees.
My dad wasn't home when my mom realized that this weather was no joke. This was serious.
At around 2 p.m., the sirens started going off. My mom was on her Apple iMac trying to get connection to watch ABC 3340.
I was outside when I saw something in the sky that looked like a tornado trying to form. I went inside to show everyone, and you were showing the exact same tornado on TV.
It was big, black, and had debris swirling around it.
My dad ran downstairs and told us to get in the corner. We were all huddled over one another, trembling.
Me, my mother, father, grandmother, and oldest dog were sitting in our safe place. I had at least 14 stuffed animals I was hugging on. We got the call that Mr. Kelly, our neighbor's husband, was right in the middle of the storm. His exact words were, "The tornado is chasing me."
We were still listening to you on the radio when we heard a loud noise. It sounded like a train, but it was a tornado.
We could hear debris hitting our house. Finally, we could hear the tornado roaring down our street. We got down and prayed.
I could hear unmerciful winds whipping around the air. All of a sudden, a window burst out of our door with incredible force. In a matter of seconds, the storm that changed my life was miles away.
I heard someone say, "Is anyone there?" I yelled back, "Help us, we can't get out." It was my neighbor who helped us get out.
The trees fell onto the driveway, the branches fell off the trees, and the power line was on the road. My dad's chicken house was torn apart.
The storage shed was destroyed. My dog was trapped underneath and was almost killed.
Trees were covering almost half of my house and were down all over my neighborhood. It was devastating.
When I saw that my dad wasn't injured, I thought to myself, because his birthday was only 2 days away, happy birthday, Dad. None of us got killed or injured.
A news reporter said that we weren't going to have church, but nothing would stop that little church from trucking forward. I really felt that God was at my side the whole time.
For the next 4 days, we had no power. I got to cook on the grill. I like bacon cooked over wood fire, much tastier and less oil.
If it wasn't for you staying on top of the situation, the people of Coleman would not have known what to do.
I think April 27th was a very sad, terrible day, but it was a day that the Coleman community came together to help people.
I do have one question. How long did you stay up that day?
A tribute to the victims of April 27th, the lives we will always remember.
In the middle of so much loss, the easy question is why? Why did this happen? For the people that live in these neighborhoods, they're asking, why did it happen to me and my family? But I was so encouraged to see the question change in the days after April 27th. From why to what? People in our state started asking the question, what can I do to help my neighbors in need? We've got a long way to go, but we've come a long way. And Alabama has a spirit of faith. It's a strong faith. And I firmly believe our better days are ahead of us. Tonight we leave with a look at those that lost their life in memory of those precious souls from April 27, 2011. For ABC 3340, I'm James Spann. Thank you for watching, and good night.